Hello everyone, today I am drawing some more Twilight fan art, and this video is going to be an attempt at ASMR, so please bear with me. I wanted to do a draw with me video where I actually talked about my process and how I sort of create everything I create, but the best way to do that is in live time, and that's impossible because I cannot talk for 40 minutes straight. I mean, I suppose I can, but not about my process and artistic creativity, etc., etc. But since this is in mostly real time, I also wanted to record the sounds of my device and my keyboard, which puts this video footage in the realm of ASMR. And the only reason I'm even remotely entertaining this idea is because I've been told several times that I have a soothing voice. With that being said, like always, this is unscripted and I am just doing my best, so forgive me for any mistakes or horrible ASMR vibes. And yeah, let's get into it. So I did start this back in November, which is why a lot of it is already done by the start of this video, but my artistic process has not changed since then, and I think the most important part, or the part people are most curious about, is the rendering part. But to give some background, I always do a sketch and then a neater sketch, and then I put my flats down and add some minimal shading and lighting. I used to merge all of these layers, but I no longer do that. I work with multitudes of layers, although I don't tend to have enough to warrant folders or getting in the double digits. I used to use multiply layers for shading, but they always lean too saturated and I don't frequently want that. I will use them for blush or certain areas which are supposed to be warm toned, but I frequently don't use them for shading anymore. I just use my knowledge of color theory. And once I'm done with all of the preliminary shading, all of the directives essentially for myself, I like to consider them the underpainting with some extra color. I create a whole new layer above that and I start filling things in. And by that I mean I use the directed shading I've already done, I use the lighting I've already created, so I'm not necessarily pushing anything into new territories. I've already set my guidelines, I already know how I want the piece to look, so I'm essentially just following the blueprint I've already made for myself. And so this is what you've been seeing throughout the video. Obviously I have cuts, but it's not drastic enough that I hope you guys will miss anything important. However, if you do want to see more details of the process without any cuts, I will be posting an audio-less video of this in full on my Patreon, which will be linked down below. At this point of the process, a lot of this is just building upon the color that's already on my canvas. I've already set my base tones, I've already set my base shading. I'm either making the shading darker or adding details that I did not add with my basic shading. And this is the part of the drawing where I recommend zooming out and staying zoomed out unless you're working on a specific part of the drawing. Like here, I'm working on the face, so I've zoomed in on the face. But you'll notice that I'm not zooming in on the lips despite working on those tiny minute areas, because the more you zoom in, the more you lose sight of the bigger picture, and that generally results in disproportionate drawings and confusing colors. But when you stay more zoomed out, you get to retain the bigger picture and see what it is you're trying to do. You'll also notice that a lot of this is painting over things I've already done, and I know that seems counterintuitive or counterproductive, but what I'm doing here is smoothing things out and fixing color tones. Earlier, when the background was gray for just a few moments, you guys saw that there were patchy areas, and this is throughout the entire drawing because I tend to use the same brush for everything, including filling in my colors. I like the appearance of this. It reflects normal paint, it reflects how I would use oil paints, but obviously if your background is different colored from your subject matter, it causes some issues with patchiness. And of course, this is my own flawed decision to use brushes that have dilution and transparency. But since that probably isn't going to change anytime soon, I end up redrawing or painting over what I've already colored in frequently. And I guess that's not working very smart. It is in fact working harder, not smarter. But even if it gives me more work, I actually like the transparency. I feel like I have more room to play with color and the way layers work on canvas. Beyond that, around this time last year, I think I started developing a style more carefully. Prior to that, I focused a lot on accuracy and really capturing the true human form. And you know what? I am arrogant enough to say that I have probably mastered the art of the human facial portrait. Or at the very least, I've mastered it to the point where I don't need to put such an emphasis on realism in my work anymore. I've already developed the substance behind the stylistic nature of my creations. And that's not to say that there is no room for improvement. There is massive room for improvement, and I have so many goals and things I want to work towards. But I'm at a point where I feel comfortable not necessarily representing humans in the most accurate and realistic way. Beyond that, at some point in November, I was really focused on this idea of creating Tumblr-esque art. This is very 2014 of me, you could say. But when I was first learning how to draw and I was really immersing myself in artwork, I was really inspired by a lot of artists who were popular on Tumblr. Like Viria, Ikumaru.jpg, Ellen Tori, Kiwibird, Burge, and several others. And of course they didn't have identical styles, but a lot of the things they would post would be sketches or work that was not finalized in any way, and you could see all of the line work and decisions and thought process behind the sketches. And back in November, I really wanted to see how fast I could make artwork, how many sketches I could push out, how quickly I could create things in 1 hour sittings. And in trying to do that, I kept being reminded of these artists that I followed 10 years ago, that I still follow today even. And I really think this forceful nature of trying to make sketches as quickly as possible and trying to create pieces literally just for posting. Definitely not the best thing to do. I don't recommend only creating work to post it online. But doing so was essentially a challenge for myself, and instead of doing something like Inktober, I was just trying to rapidly push out artwork, and I did improve. Which comes back to the idea of quantity over quality and how doing more of anything will make you better at it quickly. And it also really helped solidify my process and the way I want to create and the way I do create, which was definitely nice and something I really wanted, so I was very grateful for that. Anyway, I don't really have much more to say about this drawing. Obviously it's not finished and I'm going to continue to work on it. If you're curious on seeing updates, you can go visit my Patreon, and for $1 you can see early access, see access to behind the scenes content and things I don't ever post online. Or you could just join as a free member and you'll still get access to a bunch of free content of a similar value. But for the rest of the video, I'm just going to put Garfield on the mic and see what he's willing to do, which is probably purr for a whole minute. Thank you for watching!